Greetings, fellow time travelers. Today, we'll unravel the story of Ronald Reagan, a man whose charm hid a web of fabrications and manipulations. Gather around as I, your wise narrator, take you back in time to uncover the truth behind the myths. Reagan's 1984 re-election campaign promised a new dawn with the now famous slogan, "Morning in America." But behind the optimism lay carefully constructed stories, hiding cracks in the foundation. Reagan touted an economic recovery, but the reality was far more complex. His tax cuts for the wealthy widened the income gap, and unemployment had skyrocketed earlier in his term. Much of the recovery stemmed from policies set in motion by his predecessor, not his own. Despite his promises of fiscal responsibility, Reagan's policies tripled the national debt by prioritizing tax cuts and defense spending. He left the nation with long-term financial challenges he carefully avoided discussing. Reagan's infamous evil empire speech fueled fears of Soviet dominance, but as we owls know, the USSR was already teetering on economic collapse, far from the unstoppable force Reagan described. Reagan portrayed the Grenada invasion as a heroic triumph against communism, yet Mado's drift reveals how the invasion bypassed congressional oversight and exaggerated the threat, paving the way for future unilateral military actions by presidents. In one of the greatest scandals of Reagan's presidency, his administration sold weapons to Iran and funneled the profits to Nicaraguan rebels. Actions that blatantly violated U.S. law. As Mado argues, this secrecy and manipulation set a dangerous precedent for unchecked presidential power. While Reagan avoided addressing the AIDS epidemic, thousands died. His administration's inaction reflected political priorities that favored his evangelical base over public health. Reagan masterfully aligned himself with the religious right, using faith as a political tool. Critics argue this alliance wasn't about morality. It was about securing votes by dividing the nation along ideological lines. Reagan's campaign used subtle racial appeal, like launching his 1980 bid near the site of a civil rights murder. This wasn't coincidence. It was calculated, exploiting racial divisions to win votes in the South. Behind Reagan's public support lay a network of political action committees. These groups, backed by corporate donors, created an illusion of grassroots movements, masking their real agendas. Reagan's Star Wars program promised to make nuclear weapons obsolete, but the technology was far from ready. Maddow points out how these grand promises fed into unchecked defense spending, driven by executive power. Reagan's presidency often sidelined civil rights. He vetoed crucial legislation and resisted sanctions against apartheid South Africa, prioritizing political alliances over justice. As Maddow outlines in Drift, Reagan's presidency marked a turning point, where war and military decisions became increasingly controlled by the executive branch. This shift weakened congressional authority and brought America closer to perpetual war. Reagan's administration worked hard to suppress inconvenient truths, controlling narratives to maintain his image as a strong leader. The tactics Reagan used, fabricating threats, manipulating data, and consolidating power, left a legacy of division and mistrust. Maddow warns that these strategies have reshaped America's political and military landscape to this day. Reagan was a transformative figure, but not always for the better. By prioritizing optics over honesty and shifting power to the presidency, he left a lasting mark on American governance. So, what do you think? Hero or manipulator? Let's discuss.